Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. So today we begin our next Primarch week special, and it's the time of Mortarion, Primarch of the Death Guard. And today we begin with his origins upon Barbarus, and a meeting that would forever shape his destiny. Spoiler warning to begin, the events we are discussing today are from the Horus Heresy novel The Buried Dagger by James Swallow. As always, I really recommend you read the story for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. Not only that, we help to support the great Games Workshop and Black Library, because without them we don't have this amazing lore to talk about. I'll put a link to the novel in the description. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. So Mortarion, to me still to this day, alongside his brother Jagatai, one of the most truly unknown Primarchs, so often on the outside, as opposed to brothers such as Horus or even a Rabute Guilliman. But how much of that is through design or Mortarion's own actions? Well, hopefully we'll get to explore that some throughout the week. Now, Mortarion's origins, like many of his fellow Primarchs, were not the easiest of upbringings. After his capsule was scattered into the Immaterium from the depths of the Imperial Palace, the young Mortarion came to rest upon the world of Barbarus. And unlike some of his luckier brothers, Barbarus was not a pleasant world. Covered in a poisonous fog, it was ruled by a caste of creatures known as the Overlords. To the galaxy at large, the Overlords were a cruel psychic Xenos race who dominated the world through their use of sorcerous power. And they survived atop the highest peaks amidst the lethal fog. To the people of Barbarus, however, there was a darker tale of myth. A former human people who accepted a pact from a monstrous dark power, heavily hinted to be Nurgle himself. Whatever the truth of the Overlords, they emerged from their wars in the fog only to prey upon and enslave the native human population who lived in the lower valleys and plains safe below the toxic cloud. And so it was that the infant Mortarion was found by the High Overlord himself, going by the name of Nikea. However, rather than destroy this crying infant before him, Nikea took in the obviously powerful child and named him Mortarion, born out of death. As a testament to perhaps the High Overlord's dark nature, he tested how far this child could survive into the poisonous fog, and once finding Mortarion's limit, moved his own fortress beyond it, seemingly from the very beginning, fearing the young Mortarion's potential. However, despite this, Nikea still raised Mortarion in his own reflection, teaching him his dark skills of warfare, and placing him at the forefront of his armies. But for all of Nikea's teachings, the one thing he could never prevent from emerging was Mortarion's instinctive humanity. And Mortarion's mind was drawn to know of the people living beneath the poisonous gas, the prey of the Overlords, the Lessers as they had been labelled. And this for me is such a defining trait of the Primarchs. Yes, they were created for war, to be the generals of the human race, but they are still at their very core human. And for all the flaws that may come with it, there too comes its greatest strength. Our compassion, our empathy, our humanity. For all the bleakness and darkness of some of the Primarch's beginnings, that glimmer That spark could never truly be denied. For Conrad surviving alone amid the darkness. For Angron, knowing nothing but the brutality of Nuceria's slave pits. And here Mortarion, enslaved himself to a tyrant he can never face. Now, as we know, this was not to remain Mortarion's fate, and on one particular night, Mortarion was within his citadel upon the lowest slopes of the mountainside, festering as he always had to prove his overlord wrong, to somehow breach the heights of the poisonous cloud and end his foster father's life. As these thoughts run through the young Mortarion's mind, he is shaken from his decay by the sounds of gunfire. Looking out across the mountainside, Mortarion spies a caravan of prisoners being escorted by the Overlord's savage golems. One of the vehicles lays on its side, with a hole blown open within. And in this moment, Mortarion lays eyes on someone who would forever alter his destiny. From the torn open cargo bed came a human, clad in rags, clutching at a breather mask and retching. He was a youth, stocky and fox-faced, his eyes wide with fear. The youth turns back to the vehicle and begins to help out the rest of the tattered and terrified humans. With nowhere else to run, they begin to head for Mortarion's citadel, anywhere being better than their current situation, as golems begin to deploy and give chase after the petrified prisoners. As Mortarion paces the battlements, completely invested in the ongoing scene, the youth appears to use some form of psychic ability, taking out one of the chasing golems, before locking eyes with Mortarion. And here in this moment, as each of his Primarch brothers have on their own homeworlds, Mortarion reaches his defining moment. Here and now, long before the coming of his father, before the triumphs of the Crusade, and long before the Horus Heresy, Mortarion makes his life-defining decision. As the youth calls for the figure of Mortarion to aid them, Mortarion wrestles with his mind of emotions, asking himself just what he is, who he is. His every instinct is calling for him to act, yet his entire life to this point has been taught to do otherwise. The dichotomy of nature versus nurture in perfect fashion. The embittered mind of Mortarion can't help but wonder if it's yet another test of loyalty. Yet the heart of the Primarch within is yearning to leap to action, even if Mortarion can't yet understand why. Instinctively, he backhands one of his own guardsmen as it raises a weapon to shoot the approaching humans. The youth now is upon the ground, hacking away with a makeshift dagger as the pursuing golems reach the struggling escapees. Mortarion knows time is almost up, yet still his mind races with questions. Thoughts that you really have to feel will plague the Primarch for the rest of his existence. The scars of his time upon Barbarus, embedded deep within him. What am I? The question hammered at Mortarion's thoughts. A tool, a weapon, a disappointment, an error, a fool. As Mortarion's mind continues to go through everything his Overlord father has put him through, a burning anger begins to unleash from inside. The forging of the Primarch he would go on to be becomes moulded in the explosion of one defining emotion: defiance. Drawing his gun, Mortarion takes out the golems attacking the prone youth, before turning on the guards upon his own battlements, taking them out in a matter of split seconds. Now, I've spoken of this moment being a defining meeting for Mortarion already, and indeed it is. Yet you also get the feeling that this is also an extremely defining moment for his nature. That emotion of defiance that resolves within him, you really feel he will carry it for the rest of his life. He will hold it against anyone and everything. That chip on his shoulder that will never be broken, much like the Death Lord himself. Wasting no time, Mortarion charges into the carnage, eviscerating the golems that have set upon the prisoners. With nothing more than a piece of chain and his bare hands, the Primarch tears apart every single golem that dares to face him, noticing amid the melee that the youth is fighting by his side, once more displaying the use of sorcerous power. But within the space of a few more seconds, Mortarion has ended any golem still left standing. This moment of peace was not to last, however, as the sounds of the Overlord's approach begin to arise. Mortarion's advanced eyesight spying the approaching lanterns amid the gloom. Mortarion had betrayed his adopted father, and now he came with every force available to enact his punishment. However, it is here, upon the cold, dark mountainside, with his hands caked in the blood of those he had spent his life beside, an understanding materializes deep within Mortarion. Somehow, in performing this act for a simple handful of slaves, Mortarion has found himself. Mortarion's soul, this deeply lonely and broken skein of a thing, caught like gossamer on the wind, and one more truth revealed itself to him. For all the future to come for Mortarion, for all the momentous moments still to transpire, for me it's this moment here that shows the truth of what the Death Lord can be. There is more beneath the skin of the Reaper of Death, that for all his embittered past and feelings, there is and always will be that kernel of humanity deep within. A gift that is shared by all of the Primarchs, no matter the paradise or the nightmare that forged them. And as for the youth that spurred Mortarion into action, he goes by the name of Calas Typhon, the future first captain of Mortarion's Death Guard. The man who would define the life of Mortarion, perhaps more than either of his fathers, the adopted Overlord Nikea, or his true creator, the Emperor of mankind. As always guys, what do you think? Mortarion's always been such a hard Primarch to get within. So stoic and guarded is his nature, he's almost always transpired across the lore the same way. Yet there remains many great insights within his mind scattered throughout the series, and none more so than this. That conflict within his mind, the inexplicable yearning to act, the calling deep within his soul, yet the burdened mind knowing only the life it is experienced. It's a truly defining moment for the Primarch, and so appropriate that it involved the one who would go on to have such an intricate relationship with his Primarch. Here as Typhon helps restore Mortarion's humanity, he would also be the one to end it, by helping to take it away from him. How is that for poetry? Man, I love these Primarch weeks, diving into the minds of these amazing characters. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.